10 small outboard fuel system issues in 5 minutes. Let's go. All right, number 10, starting with the gas can. If you're on the water, this starts to bulge out and get really, really firm. You got a lot of pressure built up in here. Hot day, gas expands, and that will force too much gas into your carb and prevent your float from going down and stopping the inflow of gas, which could cause your motor to flood. If that happens, you need to get a fuel demand valve, which will prevent excess pressure pushing too much gas into your carb, and you potentially need to look at your valve. These valves on the new EPA tanks, they have to have a pressure buildup of 5 psi before they're open. That could cause an issue because sometimes at 4 or 5 psi, that's enough to push too much gas into your carb and keep your float up. Number 9 is the bulb. This is responsible for pushing gas into your system and priming your system. When you squeeze the bulb, it pushes gas through the tube into your motor, through the fuel pump, and to fill up your carb. And it also prevents backflow of gas with the check valve here from going back into your tank. It should stay firm in operation. If it goes soft, that means you potentially are losing pressure in the system. You want to look at this check valve or potentially replacing your bulb if it's not staying primed or if this is going soft during operation. Now moving into the motor. Gas flows from this fuel line into fuel pump here. This fuel pump has a diaphragm and it is attached to, I think it's the crank, and when that it moves back and forth, which pulls gas into here and then pushes it into your carb. This could go bad. There's a diaphragm. If it gets old, if it gets cracked, it'll allow gas to leak, or it will just not pump the gas effectively. Next, number 6, fuel filter. If this filter gets clogged, this fuel pump is not going to be able to push enough gas through it into your carb. So you want to check this on an annual basis. You can take this off, look down in it to see if you have any contamination. If you have horrible, crappy gray gas lines like I do here, these break down really quick. You can put a lot of sediment, a lot of rubber into this fuel pump and clog it up really quick. You want to replace these with black. Don't be like me and be lazy. Get automotive grade fuel lines. Get rid of these gray, horrible pieces of junk. You could have a kink in your fuel line. You could have a clog in your fuel line. If everything else looks good, sometimes you want to take these fuel lines off and you want to look through them. You want to push air through them to make sure that they're open and gas can flow through them easily. Number 4, carb, dirty carb. If your carb jets are clogged up, it's not going to let enough gas come from your carb bowl into the throttle body and into the cylinder. If your outboard's hard to start, if there's dead spots when you accelerate, you may want to open up the carb and clean out the jets, clean out the bowl, and make sure everything is clean. Number 4, carb afloat. It's in this carb bowl here. If it's cracked, if it's saturated, it will not operate properly. It'll stay in the down position, which will allow too much gas into the carb, which will flood your engine. If it gets stuck or if it's rubbing against the edge of the carb bowl, it could stay in the up position, which will prevent gas from getting pushed from the fuel pump into the carb. Number 2, there's a dirt or contamination inside the needle valve on the inlet of the carburetor. Gas goes into here. There's some channels cut. The float goes up and down, which operates a needle valve, and that's where the gas goes into the carb, and that's how the carb controls the gas level in the bowl. If there is dirt or contamination in the inlet around the needle valve, then that's going to allow too much gas and can cause you to flood. Or sometimes that needle valve can get stuck in the down position, preventing gas from filling up your carb bowl. You could have a faulty choke. Your choke control here controls a plate which restricts airflow going into the carb, which creates more suction at the carb bowl, which pulls in more gas than in normal operating. If that is staying closed because there's a linkage break or something is wrong with the linkages to the control lever, or if the choke plate is stuck, it's going to pull in too much gas into the cylinder, which potentially will cause the motor to flood. Or the choke could be staying open, and that is causing not enough gas to flow in during starting operating procedure. And bonus item, bad gas. If your gas has been sitting around for multiple months, then you may want to look at getting fresh gas. You may want to look at getting a fuel stabilizer. Always run non-ethanol gas when you can, because ethanol gas will gum up your carb faster than anything. It attracts water and will cause a lot of issues in your fuel system.